Hello and welcome to Spring Into Action, today's very special guest in a bonus episode. I'm so glad to be bringing you this interview because in life you find people who just seem to be able to see things more clearly than others. You see it in sport, you see it in business, and today you are going to see it applied to real estate. So hold on to your hats. This episode is all about taking middle performers and turning them into top performers. Adam Joski, welcome to Spring Into Action. Adam, of course, as mentioned in the intro, you've got a rich history in real estate. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Today, Adam, we want to talk about the difference between high-performing agents and mid-performing agents. And then
Mm-hmm.
once we identify the gap, I want to fill it in. I want to give the audience at Spring Into Action the tips that they can follow or the strategies that they can implement in order to take the next step. Firstly, is it possible for mid-performers to become high performers?
Is it possible? It's very possible. It's very possible. It's a really good question, Jonathan. And I find, you talk about those three tiers of agents. I think, mid-performing agents to me are someone who's getting 15 to 20 personal listings a year. If you can do 15 to 20 personal listings a year, you understand real estate. You know what's required. You might just need some systems behind you, some polish, some process. But I think as a consultant and a trainer, I know that I've had a lot more success taking a mid-tier agent to a high-performing agent than a lower-performing agent to a mid-tier agent. They've got that natural instinct. They know what to do.
Yeah, and it is important, I think, in any industry, not even real estate, is that you've got to have the basics.
Mm.
And you can't build a skyscraper if you don't have the foundations. And I think that's what I find a lot in the guys and girls that are sitting in the midfield or mid pack of their office. They've got the basics and they're just missing a few ingredients that put them in the next level. You believe that it starts with self-awareness. Can you explain that?
Yeah, it's funny. I had this conversation with someone yesterday, and actually the group of people were talking about, what's the most important trait in a real estate agent, and people were throwing around the room, to be a good listener, to be a good talker, to understand people, to have good rapport, and I think to me it all starts. I think all that stuff is absolutely 100%, but I think there's a layer on top of that, and that's about self-honesty, self-reflection, and self-awareness. And the common trait that I see with high performers is there's a very, very deep understanding about who they are. When they stuff up, they own it. They look at it, and they go back to the drawing board and say, "Well, what can I do better?" And they own everything. They don't blame anything on anyone else. I think if it's up to them, if it's going to be, it's up to me sort of attitude.
Yeah. So the things you're talking about is, if if they've got a listing, but the vendor doesn't want to have a board in the street, or doesn't want to take a certain VPA, doesn't campaign or opportunity, or doesn't want to do certain things, maybe paint the front or tidy the garden. What you're sort of alluding to is that low to mid performing agents will blame the vendor.
Yeah, they'll blame the vendor. They'll say, they've got a narrative of, the vendor won't put a board up. The vendor won't take the offer. The vendor's an idiot. They won't let me do open for inspections on Saturday. I heard something the other day. The vendor's a dickhead. They won't take this offer. And the consistent thing that I see with the better performing agents is they flip that narrative completely. And the narrative that they have is, I haven't been able to convince the owner to take that offer. What am I missing here? Am I missing, what's the motivation behind the fact that they don't want to take it? There's something deeper here going on that I haven't been able to unwrap. Um, why haven't I been able to convince the owner to put a board up? What dialogue am I using that's not working? Can I bring in my director to maybe have a chat with them and convince them? Because I just haven't been able to get there in this case. But the high performance agents own everything, and they take responsibility for everything. And when you blame other people rather than going, what more can I do? It's too easy to concede. You say the owner won't take the offer, it's finished. I'm not going to make this sale. When you look at it, you're self-reflective, self-honest, and you say, I haven't been able to convince them. What more can I do? What angle can I take? What am I missing here? It drives you to keep going.
Yeah, it's continual evolution, isn't it? It's
Mm.
and it really, I think communication plays such a big part of real estate. And I think we discussed this earlier, and I'd love to touch on it now. Is that the influence of technology and the way that it's come into not only real estate but a lot of businesses is that the art of communicating, the art of negotiating the deal, the art of sitting face to face and actually feeling body energy and reading body language. I mean, communication is, most people think it's just words, or nowadays they might even think it's just content, but it's way more than that. It's human behavior. And I challenge anyone that if you're struggling to convince people to follow your advice, you've got to start at communication, and you've got to start, I think, particularly in today's environment, you've got to stop using the tools that you have in terms of your phone and technology and communicating through text, and get back to basics and sit in front of them and speak to them. And that will greatly improve the way that you not only communicate with people, but influence their decisions around
Mm.
your advice.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that I look back at agents. We talked earlier, and I think the art of negotiation is lost a little bit in our industry at the moment, the last few years. And I think you've hit the nail on the head, Jonathan. I think a lot of that is around technology, and there are so many platforms now to sign up authorities on the glass and send an authority to a vendor. There's platforms now to send a contract where a buyer can make an offer. And I think gone are the days, and I've seen, I consult to many people, as you know, and I have seen literally hundreds of deals that have fallen over um, because you've had a vendor at 600, you've had a buyer at 610 and haven't been able to close that gap. And I'm certain that it's because the agent has become an order taker. And Jonathan, you're a buyer, and I meet you in an open for inspection, and I say, would you like to make an offer? What I'll do is I'll send you a link, and send me through your offer on that link, send me the price and the terms, and then I'll go and see the owner. And I think that laziness has crept into this business. And Jonathan, if you're prepared to pay 600, I've got no doubt in my mind that if I said to you, no problems, let me come and see you. Where are you this afternoon? And you hit the nail on the head earlier. You're talking about the energy, reading the body language, and that art of influence is there when I'm sitting face to face with you. So I think that the technology of those platforms is fantastic, but I think the dangerous thing for agents is letting that take away that art of negotiation. And I think the best agents today, they use that technology, but they go and see the buyer. They push the buyer, they influence the buyer, they get more, then they jump in the car, they go to the seller, back to the buyer, back to the seller, until hopefully they close that gap and sell it. They use the technology for the signing, but not as the lazy tool to negotiate or the replacement of the agent's role, which is to influence.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a communications guy. That's my whole background, and the importance of feedback. So when I was a journalist, and you'd be asking questions, uh, watching the body language feedback, particularly when you were
Mm.
grilling people like politicians, It gave you the insight. The body language gives you the feedback on whether you are on the right path or not. Like in terms of questioning, I'm assuming that this would be the same in negotiations. Like if you've got a buyer and a vendor who are got some distance between where they need to meet in order for the transaction, surely you'd want to be in front of the buyer to press them on how, is their budget truly the ceiling? Is the number they're giving you truly their ceiling, or are they trying to get a better deal? No problems, good for them. But by doing it face to face, you get the feedback. Sending them a link, you're not getting any feedback. They're just typing in a number that they think's okay.
100%. And how many times? I mean, the majority of transactions, there might be a husband and wife. Now, what you're doing on the phone is speaking to one of those partners. You might be speaking to the husband, saying, "Well, have a chat with your wife. Here's the link, and come back to me." Um, and that old school real estate where I see deals getting done where they're getting lost today, or not happening, or not at the optimum price or terms. Old school real estate is sitting with the husband and wife saying, "What time are you both home? Let me come and see you both." And exactly what you're saying, you're reading the communication between the husband and wife. You're working out who you need to work on,
and the hurdles.
and you're getting a deal done.
Yeah, it's like the process of using technology to get that offer. It's like it's taking it out. You're giving the power away. That's the feeling I'm getting right now,
Absolutely.
and I have a bit of a beef with. I don't know. I'm not an agent, but I don't know what they call it. I think it's tender sales, where you put your best offer in an envelope.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the early 2000s, I was buying a house in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne, and that took off as a trend. It used to always be auctions, and I loved auctions, and I loved private sales, because private sales was, this is what they want. Here's the asking price. Do you want to pay it or not?
Takes out the guesswork. Yeah.
Takes out the guesswork. Okay, that's, you're just like buying something off a shelf. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Auctions, if you weren't sure whether the asking price was right, at least the market is the market, and you'd see what other people valued it at. Transparency. But this put your best offer in an envelope. I can't tell you, I reckon I walked away from 7 homes because of that. And this, what you're describing, I'll send you the link, feels like that. And I worry about it. I've got concerns.
Well, I think what it's become is a for many people, and we are generalising here. There are some incredible agents that you and I both know and respect highly, but I think that the industry as a whole has become a little bit. It's become less of a hunter role, which sales is hunter and looking, smelling out the deal, and it's become a little bit more customer service, and
Order takers,
which is order takers, exactly right. Which is, you want to make an offer, I'll send you the link, send it through, and I'll chat with you later in the day. When you become an order taker, particularly when you're trying to list a property and you might be under competition from other agencies, when you're an order taker and you can't demonstrate the difference that you can add to a vendor, you become a commodity. And I see a lot of agents listing presentations, and I'm talking, hundreds a year, and most of them are the same. They go through, this is the marketing, this is the commission, this is what your house is worth. It's up to you what you do, whatever you want. We're here to please. There's very little conviction. There's very little strength behind what the messaging is. And when you become a commodity where you're all the same, the vendor will pick the agent either on who they like the most, and or who is the cheapest fee. And this is where the honesty comes in. I hear agents all the time saying, "I lost a listing because I was at 2% and the other agent was at 1.7%." My immediate thought, and we touched on this earlier about the top performers, is their thought is, how did I not demonstrate 0.3% difference? I haven't done my job here. I need to look at what I've done wrong. But also, they haven't demonstrated their strength as a negotiator to demonstrate 0.3% difference because they're order taking.
How did I not communicate that 0.3%? I'm well worth every cent of it.
And more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
And more.
it's an incredible art, the art of selling. It was my very first job was in the art of selling TV commercials, and that was Mad Men style stuff, right? And it was pretty competitive, and you had to be sharp and you had to know how to do deals. Um, and I think that's being lost. I think for a while there, um, it became cool not to be a salesperson.
Yep. Yep. I've spoken to you offline about my dentist story, haven't I?
I'll tell you a dentist story because I think it's a great example. It's a great lesson. Tell me about that. Let's go to let's go to the dentist story.
And this is where I think lack of conviction is hurting agents and lack of strength. And we talk about how agents are becoming, or I think you use the word order takers, and I love that, or customer service people, and they're becoming a commodity. And what they're not, and I'll give you this example. So a few years ago, one of my daughters needed some treatment to her teeth. So we went to a dentist, and this is very much real estate agents today. So we went to the dentist and we said, they had a look in our daughter's mouth and we said, what do you recommend? The dentist said to us, well, we can do Invisalign, we can do braces, you can have a plate, we could do surgery, or you can leave it for 6 months. It might move back by itself. We're not sure. We'll see how we go. Um, Ultimately, Mr. and Mrs. Josky, you're the customer and I'm here to please. And whatever you want to do, I'll do. What would you like to do? What option would you like to take? And for us, what do we know about dentistry, right? So we're saying, well, we just wanted to get the answer. What's the recommendation? So we weren't satisfied. And this is very much what agents do. Agents will present advertising and they'll show 3 schedules and they'll say, which one would you like? Bronze, silver, or gold? When someone says that to me, I'm saying, well, if you're presenting bronze, silver and gold is probably not required, or you wouldn't give me the option of bronze. So agents are saying, well, here's 3 schedules. Which one would you like? Ultimately, it's up to you. Whichever one, I'm here to please. Then we went to another dentist to get a second opinion. The dentist looks in my daughter's mouth and says, well, because we were lost and we had no faith and trust in that first dentist that they could get the job done. And ultimately, what we want is someone that we can trust to get the job done. We went to see the second dentist. He looks in my daughter's mouth and he says, this is Invisalign. 100% any day of the week, this is Invisalign. I've seen it hundreds of times before. So he's now built our trust. This is not an unusual situation. This is Invisalign. It's probably going to be 6 months and then it might be a plate for 6 months. Now, you can do braces. You can leave it and see what happens. You can get a plate. But if this was my family and this was my daughter, there is no question in my mind it is Invisalign any day of the week. What do you want to do? What do you think we did? Which dentist do you reckon we used?
You signed up within minutes because he gives you clarity, he gives you direction, and he's removed all the fear of the unknown. And I think that's exactly where agents are at the moment. They're so scared of saying the wrong thing that might turn someone away that they're not standing for something. And I do this in my process all the time.
Yes.
Before you can start creating content, before you can start telling stories, you need to stand for something. You need to have your own belief system of what sort of agent you are, because unless you know where you actually stand,
Love
how
that.
will you know what role you play in the stories that you're telling? Now, those dentists, you might
Love that.
if I was a dentist, you can sit there and go, I'm the old school braces, decades of history and feedback and experience. I trust braces. I'm that kind of guy. Yes, your kid's going to have braces and there's going to be some ugly school photos for a year. But you know what? I know that it works and the data says it's going to work. Then you can have a different dentist say, hey, I'm a modern technology advanced guy. I adopt all the new things. Invisalign's the greatest invention in dentistry in the last 20 years. It replaces braces. I go that way. all of a sudden you've got two different offers in the market. And I think what you say all the time is when you're looking at all those appraisals and those appraisal presentations, there is not enough differentiation when agents are sitting at dining room tables. They've all got the same systems. All got the same software behind them. They might have different names, but they do similar things. And it's the same with content. Real estate agent content is ultimately, the bulk of it is boring because it's irrelevant to the people they're making it to, but it's all the same. So I think you and I both agree. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I just encourage agents to stand for something and be different. And the best different is to be you. Do you think that's missing? Is that something that they need to focus on? Do you agree with me or not? I'm happy for you not to agree with me.
I think
Did you freeze? Oh no. You froze.
I've
We
lost the
had a glitch
last
in.
30
We had a glitch.
seconds.
Yeah, we had a
Yeah, I've
glitch
lost
in
the
the
last
matrix.
30 seconds. So,
All right, I'll just do a cut there. So glitch in the matrix. I'm a big believer that you've got to stand for something in order to stand out in the market. Do you think that's what's missing
yeah,
in real estate now? It's just everyone's just too much the same.
100%. Agents go in there and they talk about marketing, advertising, commission, and 90% of agents that I see today, the basis of their presentation in the lounge room to try to convince the owner to sell with them is we've got buyers. And that's where they're all going. We've got buyers, list with us, we've got buyers. So few agents, and this is the number one thing that's important in today's market, so few agents talk about everyone's going to have buyers. The most important thing today is the skill of the negotiator and getting the deal done. And the best agents that I see, and it's, success leaves clues, it's the same, right? All the good agents that I see with their listing presentations are saying, you need someone who's going to get this deal done. You want $600,000. You need someone who you believe has the highest chance of getting 620. Hopefully, I've demonstrated my negotiating skills because I've been strong in my conviction and held my ground and stood for something, as you say. But
Sorry to interrupt.
where, yeah.
And you've got to do that at the risk of losing certain people because they don't connect with you.
You will win so many more than you lose.
Correct.
If I leave and I go, I'm strong in my conviction. If you want someone to get the deal done, I'm your guy. And there's three other agents just talking about, here's the marketing and here's your ad schedule and we've got buyers and these are buyers. And they're not talking about getting the deal done. And the other thing they don't do is very few agents now will sit with a vendor and tell them how much they want the business. I'm amazed. They go through the presentation, they go through the steps, and they say, give us a call tomorrow. We've got buyers. Can I get a buyer through all this sort of stuff? But there are very few who will look you in the eye, Jonathan, and say, I want this. I'm going to work my butt off. I'm going to work harder than anyone else. You want to get the best price. I'm your guy. What do we need to do? I really want your business.
Yeah, and I think in this current market, right across Australia, I've got agents across that I work with one-to-one across Australia and New Zealand, and it's very similar. New Zealand's probably slower than Australia's markets, to be honest. It seems as though there's still plenty of buyers around, but it's almost like that Spider-Man meme where you've got the three Spider-Mans all pointing at each other, and you've got the vendor pointing at the agent, and the agent pointing at the buyer, and the buyer pointing at the vendor, and everyone's waiting for something to happen before they pull the trigger. Now, in this sort of market, in this sort of environment, and I think we probably saw similar around 2006 when there was a bit of a dip. It had been booming for a while and then it dipped. And I think everyone sort of stood off then too. And the ones that came out the other side on top, the ones who were actually successful, they didn't try and set new records in this time. It was just a matter of survival. But they were the ones who were prepared to go out there and cut the deals. study the art of negotiation, study go the extra mile, get in front of all the parties and read all the signs and all the language and bring them together.
And understand the motivations, the deep motivations of all the parties, why the buyer wants the house, why is the owner really selling it.
Yep.
And what you say is spot on. But unless you've got a deep understanding about why both parties want to come together, it's very hard to get that deal done.
Yeah, look, I get a lot of agents who talk about, things are hard. I've got a morning walk that I do. I do the same path every day, and I count the boards. I'm in
Mhm.
Melbourne's eastern suburbs. I count the boards.
Of course you do.
Now, in winter, so what was it? Mid August, I think I had 3 boards on the walk. 3 boards, 3 different brands.
Is
Uh,
that what you call a boardwalk?
yeah, do a boardwalk. That's it. Let's call it
No.
the brand it the boardwalk. I'll get
Yeah.
t-shirts made. We can start a walking.
That's right.
So I did the boardwalk 3. Yesterday, 11.
Wow.
11. So there's no shortage of stock. There's no shortage of people who are wanting to sell. And I think what they've done is they held off. I think they held off winter more than ever. And I think some agents who are maybe struggling a little bit at the moment, that you always have that delay in real estate of when you get paid for the work that you do.
Mm.
So I think we're sort of experiencing that now. And I think what's compounded a little bit is that maybe spring's been a bit slower because everyone's waiting for interest rate changes or noise. And there's a lot of mainstream media noise around interest rates. But I think if I would challenge agents, and my podcast co-host Darren Prattley, you can listen. He says this: go back to 2018 and 19 and count your numbers. Have a look at your stock levels, and you'll be surprised to find that they're about the same, if not better, today than what they were back then.
Mm.
And all that's in between those numbers and today is the anomaly called COVID, which was a complete once in a lifetime scenario.
Mhm.
And you can't compare what's going on to that. Do you think that COVID has left a lot of agents um, thinking that they're underperforming because it was such a boom time?
Yeah, I think that look, there's no doubt that there are, the market is tougher now. There's no question. Everything you say is right. Interest rates have gone up, the cost of living's, difficult. There's other taxes, land tax. There's no question the market is more difficult. And I'm probably not answering your question, but I'm going to divert a little bit because I think it's important. Um, I think that we've spoken a lot today about the art of making a deal, and I think that um, what agents need to be doing in a market like this, where there is stock, but maybe there's limited highly motivated vendors, maybe there's limited highly motivated purchasers. Um, More than ever, now is the time to be able to look for a deal and put a deal together. And I've said to you before, Jonathan, the other problem that I find in real estate is agents are so appraisal centric, and always looking for the next appraisal. And I'm meeting you at an open for inspection. I'm meeting you in the queue at a bank. I'm meeting you everywhere, and I'm saying to you, would you like an appraisal? All the letter drops that I get in Malvern here where I live, would you like an appraisal? We're going to be in your street doing appraisals next week. But where are the agents trying to put deals together? Where are the agents not saying, Jonathan, do you want an appraisal? Where are the agents saying, have you had any thoughts about selling? Like, could I convince you to sell if I got you at an amazing price? Would you think about it? Let me come over and see your home. Maybe there's a deal to be made there. Now, maybe there's not. But, the top agents that I see out there, their radars are on. There's deals to be made everywhere. And they're asking the question, do you want to sell? Now, when someone says, no, I won't sell, then they might be offering an appraisal. But there's this laziness that's come into our industry of offering appraisals and then just hoping that in a few years' time, maybe they'll sell and maybe they'll remember us.
And that can be a real trap in my mind, is that if you are really good at attracting appraisals over opportunities to sell,
Mm.
you can actually cripple yourself in your business. I see it all the time with Facebook ads. How
Yep.
much is your house worth? Put your details in. We'll contact you, tell you what your property's worth, blah, blah, blah. And you could end up with within a weekend, 200, 300 phone calls that you have to make. And they're all low rent, low chance opportunities. They're just people who want to know how much their house is worth. They got no intention of selling.
And the worst part is that most agents don't use a strong database. So they go to these appraisals of people, these 200 opportunities that you've now, or that they've generated via social. They go to these opportunities, they go to these appraisals that aren't selling. They don't have great follow-up systems. They expect the client to remember them. The client doesn't remember them 3, 4, 5 years on. And my attitude is, why go if you haven't got a good database or follow-up system to these people who aren't selling? Because they're just spending so much time through that day chasing that tie. So let me ask you this, as a one of Australia's leading social and digital people, how many people are doing campaigns saying, we need houses for spring. If you've had any vague thoughts about possibly selling, we need to hear from you.
You know, I even with the strategy we put in place at Viral, we even wind it back even further, and it's we find what's the problem that they're thinking about, what's the pain that they're in, and then we make content that addresses the pain. So,
Love it.
is now a good time to sell your house? You know, and a script we wrote for an agent yesterday is yes, now is a great time to sell your house because we've got lots of buyers. And come January, February, there's going to be a lot more people who are going to start selling their homes. Right now, it's a supply and demand issue. There's a fair bit of demand. You'll be one of only a few houses on the market. Where come January, we think that there's going to be 25 houses on the market in the area.
So there's an immediate call to action, and there's a we need houses. You've got a problem. Let us help you solve that problem.
Yeah,
Let's
we
help
don't
each
even
other
put
rather than being again customer service orientated. Would you like an appraisal? We're offering appraisals to people at the moment.
we hide you got to hide the sell. You got to hide you trying to feather your own nest. And it's like, if you're in this position and you're having these doubts and these doubts are keeping you awake at night, here's what me as an expert in your area thinks your strategy should be coming into Christmas. And the
Awesome.
closest thing we get to a sell is if you have any more questions about this, if you haven't understood or I haven't explained this well enough for you, just send me a message or a DM or give me a call. I'll be happy to walk you through it and have a chat.
Yeah, awesome.
All of a sudden, you've just opened up the opportunity. And if that person's taking action after watching a video of you talking about that, you know they're in the sales cycle.
Yes, that's right.
You know
They've got some thoughts.
You're not spending 20 minutes at Barry and Jan's house admiring their dogs and their photos of their kids from the age of 6 to 16, wondering are they actually even going to move from this house? They seem pretty
Right.
wedded to it. You've actually got someone on the phone who's, you actually hit me right in the heart because that's exactly how I'm feeling right now. And that person, we call them a half step away market. They're half a step away, and the only thing holding them back is fear of the unknown. But if in your content you can remove that, you get them taking action, and then there's the opportunity.
Love that. That's awesome.
And then it comes down to the art of negotiation, which is your piece, right? But I think databases are very important. Where do you think most databases fall over, or agents with databases fall over? What's the biggest challenge there?
I would say that the majority of databases that I see around the country are glorified address books. Name, phone number. There might be an email in there. There's very little marketing. It's very generic. And this is why, and we can have another conversation, or we can do another 10 sessions on database management. That's my wheelhouse. I love playing in. But I think there's very little follow-up. Sorry, go.
You think it's got to go deeper than that, though, don't you? You really segment your databases and really break. You haven't just got name, address, email, phone number. You've got when did I last contact them? What have I sent them? How have I followed them up? what was their feedback on the follow up? Like, I mean, your spreadsheet goes almost 500 meters.
Yeah, well, it's a matter of, what's my relationship like with them? How am I going to market to these people? Have I got an advocate 5-star relationship with them versus have I just met them and I'm going to market to them differently? Have they got a house? Have they got a 3-bedroom, a 2-bedroom? Is it an apartment? Is it land? And, it's about segmenting and marketing to people on stuff that's relevant for them. Rather than sending someone who's got a $2 million house that just listed or just sold correspondence for an apartment that's worth $400,000. Sorry, I've just got stuff falling off the desk. I think that's the easiest.
You're not in Florida, are you?
I might as well be. My God, it's terrible.
That's okay. This is live. We're not changing it. We're keeping it in. Even the glitch before. It's just raw. I'm a big believer of raw.
I've actually got a pin board, a cork pin board, and it's been there for 10 years, and it's literally just come off the wall right when we were doing this video.
That's amazing.
It hasn't moved in 10 years. Like the wall behind it is a different color because of the sun, because it's been sun bleached.
I thought you just painted around it. You just didn't take the pictures off the wall when you paint it. I've been in houses like that. They're special. I think database. I think sometimes people can get too romanced by databases, in the sense that they focus too much on getting a certain number. It's like views on videos. So I'm not going to get 1,000 views. I'm not going to do it. Well, guess what? You can find, if you make the right video with 200 views, you can get 5 listings.
Mm-hmm.
And with a database, if you've only been in real estate for 4 or 5 years and you've got a database of, say, 200 or 400, how well are you working that 400? This is where you really believe, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think, I've seen people try to manage 6,000 people and they might communicate with each person once or twice a year. People aren't going to remember you, and you don't leave a lasting impression once or twice a year. I'd sooner see that agent new to the area have 2 to 400 people, communicate with them 26 times a year every couple of weeks with targeted, relevant communication without the bragging, something that's going to make the receiver more educated and smarter and telling you something they don't know. I'd sooner see those 2 to 400 be worked really well than those 4, 5, 6,000 that are getting 1 or 2 communications. I know that when I was selling full time, I had a database of 2 to 3,000. I wasn't looking for any more. I mean, that's enough. If 10% of them transact every year, there's 200 or 300 transactions. If I'm getting a reasonable percentage of those, that's a pretty decent year.
Yeah, you're busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the key. I think quality over quantity is a massive lesson. Even in terms of content, don't just palm out content all the time. That's low quality. It's got to be high quality.
And relevant for them, and that's the biggest thing that I see agents getting wrong.
Yeah, and I think moving into if we look forward to the future with the emergence of AI, the one thing we're going to get swamped with, and I think it's going to be a trap for real estate agents, is that content creation is no longer going to be a barrier. You're going to be able to get AI to create endless amounts of content for you.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean it's going to be good. Doesn't mean it's going to work. Okay? Focus on using tools like your phone to build relationships. And I think that's what you've been a master of in your time. But also to study that art of negotiation. So let's just recap your points, Adam. You can correct me if I get these wrong. I wrote notes as we went. Being self-aware, having a real honesty and the ability to reflect on your own performance and judge it, not be too harsh, but just be real, and awareness. And if things aren't working, look at what you're doing wrong, not how the other person's behaving. So really take that ownership.
Yeah.
Move into forming human-to-human relationships. Try and go back to the old school. Be in front of them, read body language, understand where they're at and how you can help them get to where they want to be. But before you can actually push them on their journey, you've got to know where they are. I'm a big believer in that too.
I mean, someone might be paying us $20,000 or $30,000 for a transaction. We owe it to to be able to influence and make a difference.
And I think real estate agents forget that sometimes. How much are you getting paid to do this? And, I'm a big believer of protecting fees too. I think agents sometimes are just too quick to drop their fees. I think the industry as a whole needs to set a narrative to defend.
But that happens because they haven't been able to highlight any value or any difference.
Correct.
So how can they justify charging more? I know we're recapping the same thing over and over.
I know, but it's always good to recap because it just re-embeds the lessons. And then finally, if you've got data, don't be chasing big numbers. Chase quality in the data and quality of connections. As you said, if you've got a list of 2,000, which isn't that hard to get nowadays. If someone says, "Oh, I can't build my database," I go, imagine being an agent in the 90s. How would you build your database in the 90s?
It was all flip cards. We used flip cards.
Right. Yeah, it was hard. So there's never been an opportunity to communicate more readily and more freely than today, and it's only going to get better. But if you've got a database of 1,500 to 2,000, that can do you for life.
That's all you need if you're doing it right. Yep.
Yeah. Amazing insights, mate. It's been incredible. Thanks for joining us on Spring Into Action. And I'm sure I'm going to interview you again. I think we've got 100 topics we could dive into here.
We could go all day, as we've done off camera many times.
Yeah, and I think I better leave you now to go and hang your corkboard back up before the wife sees that the paint's changed colour.
Exactly. What have you done?
You might spend the weekend painting the house again if she sees that. So we might.
That's right. And I don't know how you train that puppy, but before you press record, that puppy of yours is barking nonstop. The second you press record, haven't heard a thing since. So I don't know what you're doing, but obviously high-tech, understanding puppy.
Yeah, she's very well trained. There was a couple of times, I'll let you in on a secret, there was a couple of times I had to mute my microphone while you were talking. But eventually she has settled. She's a good girl. So very happy with that.
That's good. Thanks again.
And
thanks,
we'll
Jonathan.
catch up soon.
Cheers. Bye.
Now, if you enjoyed this episode of Spring Into Action, please don't forget to leave a like. It tells the algorithms that you like this sort of content and encourages creators like me to keep making it. Also, leave a comment if you've got any questions, and if you've got other people who you think could learn anything from the interview that we just conducted, don't forget to share it to them as well. Otherwise, I really appreciate your attention. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.